Is premium whiskey worth the extra high price tag? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Average Joe's Whiskey. My name is Joe. Today we're talking about premium whiskey. So for the purposes of this video, I am going to consider premium whiskey anything with a suggested retail price over $100. That does not include $99.99. Doesn't include secondary prices, so all those $50, $60, $80 bottles that you see marked up at the liquor stores for like $200 to $300. We're not talking about those. Only bottles with a suggested retail price over $100. $100 is a lot to pay for a bottle of whiskey. And let's be honest, it's not always worth it. In fact, it's probably not worth it most of the time. But I did pull 10 bottles off my shelf that I think are worth the high retail price tag. So these are all gonna be bottles that I really enjoy. They're gonna be bottles that I will try and keep on the shelf regardless of that high retail price. All right, I think you guys get the point. Let's get into it. So I'm kind of gonna go in order of price here. So we're gonna start at $109.99. Coming out of Mississippi, we have Calumet. So Calumet is a newer blended whiskey from Jonathan Maisano. This one is batch 7, comes in at 116.4 proof. It is a blend of high rye and low rye mash bills. And honestly, these are delicious. Of the Calumets that I tried, I think batch 6 was my favorite. Between batches 6 and 7, they went from 6 bottle blends to 10 bottle blends, I think. But with the 10 barrel blends, the quality did not drop. I know $110 is a lot to spend, especially for a bottle that's not age stated, but these are absolutely delicious. I'm hoping they'll put out something with an age statement in the future. Even without an age statement, I definitely think Calumet is absolutely worth the retail price at 110 bucks. Next up is a bottle I picked up recently. I was really looking forward to this one. This is Seelbach's Private Reserve 10-year-old cask strength. Here, I'm gonna pour a sip of this one. So Seelbach's released a 9-year-old cask strength last year. I think it was actually 9 years and 5 months to be exact. I thought it was great. It sold for like $99.99. My only complaint about the 9-year was that it lacked a little bit of a finish, but I still think the 9-year was a great bottle for 100 bucks. So my ears kind of perked up when they announced the 10-year and they priced it at 130. Sorry guys, I have house guests, so there's probably gonna be a lot of noise coming from upstairs. So just bear with me, okay? What was I saying? So I was a little surprised when I saw that the 10-year was gonna be $130, considering it's only 7 months older. I figured how much better could it really be, just being in the barrel an extra 7 months? The answer is surprisingly better. I'm pretty sure it's the same distillate as the 9-year-old. It's just been in the barrel for an extra 7 months. It does have a similar nose and similar palate, but it does have a better finish, and it's got noticeably more oak on the nose, which you wouldn't really expect from an extra 7 months, but it is impressive. So this one comes in at 131.4 proof, and I have to say, definitely worth the $130 price tag. Let's keep it moving. Next up, we have Bardstown Discovery 11. I've talked about the Discovery 11 before. This is just one of the best bottles that I still see regularly on the shelf. This sells for around $130, give or take. It is a blend, but made up of 73% 13-year-old wild turkey distillate. So basically 3/4 of this bottle is Russell's 13, more or less. It's not as oaky as you might expect, considering 3/4 of it is 13-year-old wild turkey, but it's just got some beautiful cherry notes, some brown sugar. Excellent, excellent blend from Bardstown Bourbon Company. Well worth the $130. I like this bottle so much, I almost immediately went and bought it back up, like as soon as I opened it. So Bardstown Discovery 11, definitely worth retail price. Hear that? There's a fucking baby upstairs. I raised 2 babies already. They're very cute, but they sure make a lot of noise. Well, I guess you could say the same thing about women. Sorry. I should edit that out. Obviously, it's a joke. I love babies, I love women. Please don't kill me. All right, next up. So the first 3 bottles on this list are honestly pretty easy to find. Let's mix it up with a little horsey action. Blanton straight from the barrel. So Blanton straight from the barrel retails for $150. Obviously, it's super difficult to find for $150. But believe it or not, a lot of people ask the question, is it worth the retail price? Is it worth that $150 price tag? My answer, yes, it is. it's worth more than the $150 price tag. It's not worth $300, but it is worth more than the $150. If you're a big fan of Buffalo Trace products, I would have to say this is probably my favorite Buffalo Trace Mash Bill #2 product. It might be my favorite Buffalo Trace product in general, antique collection aside. Like, I really like the Blanton straight from the barrel better than most stag batches, I would say. This might be my favorite regular shelf Buffalo Trace product. I don't know, I'd have to think about it some more. But anyway, Blanton straight from the barrel, definitely worth the $150 price tag, in my opinion. Blanton's Gold, on the other hand, I have a much harder time justifying at $120 for that 103 proof 6-year-old whiskey. But straight from the barrel, definitely worth it in my book. All right, let's go with another bottle that's impossible to find. Russell's Reserve 13. I was just talking to somebody the other day about this bottle. They did jack the price of this thing up. This used to be like an $80 bottle. It's now $150 retail. Is it worth $150? I think it is, but this is a bottle where I think the secondary prices are pretty insane. $300, $350 for this is just crazy. It is delicious, but I think it's not worth much more than that $150 retail price. But if you want to charge me $150, fine. It's 13-year-old Wild Turkey, one of my favorite distilleries. It's unfortunate that Diageo seems to have caught on to the whole secondary pricing thing. Now the Russell's 13's expensive, the Master's Keep is expensive, their single rickhouse is ridiculously expensive. Diageo's killing me. Hopefully they keep the prices where they're at, but $150 for a Russell's 13, yes, I do think it's worth it. All right, let's get back to a bottle that's easy to find. Calumet Farm 16. So this is actually one of my favorite easy to find higher priced bottles. I've seen these priced anywhere from like $140 to $180, but they typically sell in that $150 to $160 price point. It is 16-year-old distillate sourced from Bardstown, 106 proof, but I have to say this is a legitimately delicious 16-year-old whiskey. You get a lot of beautiful sweet oak notes on this, a lot of deep dark cherry, vanilla. There aren't a lot of 15-plus-year-old whiskeys that are easy to find. This being one of the ones that is easy to find, it just happens to be fantastic as well. I think the 16-year-old is significantly better than the 15-year-old. Usually you can find the Calumet 15 for like $30 to $40 cheaper, but I think you'd be surprised how much that extra year makes a difference. Don't get me wrong, the 15 is delicious as well, but the 16 to me really stands out as just like an excellent, beautifully aged bourbon. Calumet 16, I will always keep a bottle of this on my bar. I absolutely love it. Definitely worth the retail price. Next up we have one of my favorites. This is Little Book, Chapter 7. So Little Book is probably my favorite whiskey from Jim Beam. I'm gonna pour a little bit of this one. So this sells for $150 retail. You do see it marked up, but not as crazy high as some of the others, like the Blantons and the Russell's 13. Like $200 for this is a high markup. You should be able to find it fairly easily for less than $200. It is a blend from Freddie No, made up of 18-year-old bourbon, 17-year-old bourbon, 10-year-old rye, 9-year-old bourbon, 5-year-old malt whiskey finished in applewood smoked barrels, and then a little bit of 4-year-old bourbon and 4-year-old rye. This is just an amazingly delicious blend. I have to say the malt whiskey in this really stands out. You get some really nice malty notes like mid-palate. If you're a fan of malt whiskey, then I think you'll really appreciate this bottle. But if you don't like malt, it's still so well balanced out by all the bourbons and ryes that I think you're gonna love it regardless. It comes in at 118.1 proof. This blend is just an absolute masterpiece by Freddie No. Good job, Freddie. Keep up the good work. Little Book Chapter 7, absolutely worth the retail price tag. All right, guys, 3 more to go. 3 shall be the number that we count, and the number that we count shall be 3. If you're old, you might get that reference. Next up, had to include my namesake bottle, Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend. So honestly, I'm not even sure what the retail price is for this bottle. I think it's like $160, $170, which yes, is very expensive. But I'll tell you what I like about this bottle. It is a blend of older whiskey. They take 18-year-old bourbon, 11-year-old bourbon, and then they finish it in Armagnac, sherry, and cognac casks. It's not like a 4-gate, which is like 7 to 9-year-old whiskey that they finish in sherry and rum casks or whatever. They do take legitimately old whiskey and then they finish it. Nancy Fraley blends this. She does an amazing job. Shout out to Nancy Fraley. She has no idea who I am, but whatever. This bottle is just straight up candy. It is super sweet, super well balanced, and you do get a lot of those sweet oak notes that you typically find in older whiskey. A lot of people say that the older batches tend to be better, but this is still absolutely delicious whiskey. It's a bottle that I will try and keep on the shelf at all times. I love the flavors, I love drinking it. So to me, Joseph Magnus Cigar Blend, if you can find it at the retail price, somewhere in that 160, 170 range, definitely worth it. All right guys, 2 more bottles. Next up is a bottle that I feel is overlooked a lot of the time. I'm talking about Knob Creek 18-year. So this one used to be super hard to find. Now I see it almost all over the place. Maybe not all over the place, but I see it a lot. And I see it for retail price, which is $169. I used to see this marked up to like $250, $280, $300. Now almost every time I see it, it's like $170 to $180. Sometimes $199, but usually like $170, $180. And personally, I do not understand why this gets overlooked so often. Like, people go nuts for the Elijah Craig 18-year. I think this bottle is significantly better than the Elijah Craig 18-year for basically the same price. Obviously, I wish it were cask strength, but it's still 100 proof, 10 proof points higher than the Elijah Craig 18. It is hard to find a legitimate 18-year-old straight bourbon for a reasonable price. If you use the $10 per year it spends in the barrel metric, then at $170, this is a deal. Knob Creek 18, excellent whiskey in my book. Definitely worth the retail price. And last up, guys, we have Michter's 10-year-old rye. Now, the rye is the only one that I have right now, but this also applies to the Michter's 10-year-old bourbon. It also applies, I would say, to the Michter's barrel proof bourbon, the Michter's barrel proof rye, basically all the Michter's premium products. Absolutely worth the retail price. I'm gonna have a sip of this one, just because it's impossible for me to break out the Michter's 10-year-old rye and not have a little bit of a pour. This is the 2023 Michter's 10-year-old rye. It is the bottle that Breaking Bourbon gave a 5-barrel review to. This just has to be the best 90-something proof whiskey I've ever tried. It's 46.4% alcohol, 92.8 proof. This is just vanilla. Oh my God, dude. Oh my God. It is vanilla, it is minty. It's got like cherry cola notes. It's like a cherry vanilla mint chip ice cream float. Is that a thing? Obviously that's not a thing. But like, you know, a root beer float, right? If you were to make a root beer float with cherry vanilla cola and mint chip ice cream, I would imagine it would smell like this. And that may not sound appetizing, but if it smells anything like this, it would be amazing. Man, oh man. So retail price on this bottle, at least in Virginia, I think is $199. It is typically hard to find for the retail price, but I do see them fairly regularly for around $250. If you can find one for $250 or less, I think it is an absolute steal. All of the Michter's 10 bottles are well known for being significantly older than that 10-year age statement. I believe most of the time they're actually closer to 15 years plus. Michter's is one of the absolute best at aging whiskeys. All of their premium products are great. Their barrel entry proof is lower at like 103 proof. So when you see a bottle that's like 93 proof, it means they haven't proofed it down as much as you would think. Like Buffalo Trace going into the barrel at 125 proof. For Buffalo Trace to proof it down to 90 something, they gotta drop it like 30 proof points. Whereas Michter's only has to drop it like 10. So even at 92.8 proof or whatever it is, you still get a ton of flavor. So Michter's 10-year-old rye, 10-year-old bourbon, absolutely worth the retail price. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. These are the 10 bottles that I think are absolutely worth the retail price. Please put in the comments any bottles that you think are worth the retail price over $100. I would really be curious to hear some feedback on this, because there are some bottles that I left off the list that thought they were just not quite worth that extra high price tag. But obviously, these are just bottles that I like. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody's tastes are different. Leave in the comments what bottles you agree with, what you disagree with. I'd really be curious to hear it. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you. Please hit the like button if you're not subscribed. Please hit the subscribe button on your way out the door. Have a good night.